Welcome to More Music Please, a Quarantine Beat. I'm your host, NK. Join me and my guest as we explore how the music industry is staying busy and keeping connected during lockdown, and also just talking about whatever. Let's get started. On the line with me today, Mr. Joe Marcinek, guitarist extraordinaire, friend of the Cold Flavor Repair family. How you doing, Joe?
I am great. How are you?
I'm hanging in there. Where are you? I realized when I was setting up this call that I wasn't sure if you were even on Eastern time. Where are you based when you're not touring?
I am in Crown Point, Indiana, which is actually Central Time.
Yeah.
But not too far off.
Okay. So how's your quarantine been? You know, you are a prolific tourer usually. So what's it been like for you the last few months?
You know, it's been crazy. So I was supposed to head out, when was that, March 12th. I was going to start a 3-week tour, drove down to Savannah, Georgia for the first date. I was going all over, like Atlanta, Jackson, New Orleans, went out to Dallas, Phoenix, I think Colorado. It was like all over the place. And so I do the first show in Savannah, and then pretty much woke up the next morning and everything else was canceled.
Yeah, very
So
suddenly.
I drove home and sat at home for 3 months, which, you know, the first couple of weeks was kind of nice because I've been hitting it pretty hard. I've been on the road average 250 to 300 days for almost the past 10 years. So the first couple of weeks was kind of nice, but then the restless leg syndrome started to set in and I was ready to move.
Yeah. So how do you deal with that?
So I was super lucky to have a bass player and a drummer. Andy Sutton is the drummer and Ola Timothy was the bass player. And we were able to get together almost once a week, did a couple of the live streams, but mainly just to get together and play music, and ended up working up a bunch of new tunes and think I almost have enough for another record, which who knows what that means anymore, but at least it was nice to break the insomnia or insanity and play some music and write some new songs. So that was one of the few bright spots of sitting at home for 3 months.
Yeah, that's great. So these are all new songs that you've written during quarantine, or did you have like material you just hadn't really had time to work on?
No, I think there might have been one that I had like a pre-existing melody or a chord progression or something, but everything else, I was just sitting around like challenging myself to come up with new ideas and actually, because normally my band, you know, I don't have a set band, it changes every weekend. So I was kind of in just the trio, we called it the Quarant Trio. That was just my mindset, was to just kind of write songs for a trio, and at least that's how it started. Who knows if and when we ever record it, I'm sure it'll be more than just a trio, but it was nice to just write in that, you know, format.
Yeah. Can we talk about your, like, I don't know if you'd call it a business model, but it's pretty unique as far as I know. So you're a guitarist and you tour and you kind of pick up band members in different cities. How did you kind of get started working that way, and what's that like?
Yeah, so it kind of evolved really from just a simple getting together. I used to have a different band in Northwest Indiana called Fresh Hops, and we toured pretty regionally and we're pretty busy. So that was going, I think that started 2008. And then in around 2010, 11, a friend of mine, Peter Koopman, who I went to high school with, we had a band back in high school. But anyways, he had moved back to the region, Northwest Indiana. And I always loved playing with Pete, always wanted to have a band with him. But, you know, he was doing other stuff at the time as well. So it was kind of just, let's get together and have some fun. It wasn't like, let's start out to have this band that's going to tour all over and everything. So it would be me and him. And then it was kind of just a rotating whoever else we could get at the time. We had worked with some players from Northwest Indiana, and then eventually it spread into Chicago. But it was always fun. I put it under my name just because I was doing all the legwork and organizing everything. But at the time, it was just a little side project from my other band. So we were having fun with it. I wasn't worried about, you know, jobbing out and having to make a lot of money. It was just really a passion project. And then as it started to those things start to evolve where you're having so much fun, you want to do it more. So then we start writing tunes. I put out my first record. And then it started to travel just slowly, into Chicago, up into where I'm at. It's really easy to get into Michigan or Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio. There's a bunch of opportunities around there. So I slowly started to spread out. And when we travel, sometimes we'd bring a band. Sometimes we'd use players from Indianapolis or, say, a different city. So it just started to grow all this momentum. But it was all organically. It was all, at the time, just fun. But, as those things start to evolve and I'm starting to put more time into this, and then those guys from Fresh Drops were like, hey, what's going on, man? And I really loved what I was doing. So, there had to be a point where I had to make a break. And I think around 2013, we really started to fly some players in. I started to travel more. So it's kind of crazy on the evolution of this, but there definitely became a point where it was like, okay, this is kind of the band now, but it didn't start out consciously that I wanted to do a different lineup all the time. It was just kind of how it evolved.
Yeah.
And it got, oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, it's kind of great because I know, a big obstacle for a lot of bands that want to start touring is just everybody's got a life, and it can be hard to kind of pull everybody together. But if you're just like, planning it out 2 weeks in advance and saying, hey, like, I'm going to be in your city, I've got this show, like, sit in with me. I imagine it's easier in some ways.
It is and it isn't, because it takes a lot more work beforehand to organize everything on my end.
Right.
But at the same time, like you said, you don't have to deal with everyone's home schedule. So say I'm going to Florida, I can just hook up with players down there, send them my Dropbox, which has, my recordings and charts and stuff. And then we show up and play. Because that's the other thing. I never do any rehearsals or anything. We just try to, everyone does their homework, and then we let the magic happen, on the spot. So it's really let me network with people all over the country. And that's the other thing is that, normally when you're a touring band and you go out into a different city, it's hard to break in because you don't really know anyone. You're new from out of town. So with, my concept of using different players, a lot of times it's being able to bridge gaps of fan bases where they know, say, the bass player, or they know the drummer. So that'll bring in a new crowd. And yeah, I've just been really lucky and fortunate to have kind of stumbled onto this crazy concept.
I think it's genius. How did you hook up with the CFR guys?
So this is the best story. I've been playing in Florida quite a bit, and I think this must have been right after my Slink record came out. And so I was in, I think, Tampa, Florida. I've got a friend down there, Scott Hopkins, who has a local radio station, and always searching those low dials, 88.7 or whatever it is, to find the local jazz station or whatnot. And anyways, he said, yeah, come on in. So he was playing some tracks from my album, and we were talking about it. And at the same time, just randomly, Andy Gladding happened to be driving through, I don't even know where he was, honestly, somewhere in Central Florida.
I never know
enough
where
to
he
be
is.
able to pick up the signal. And he randomly just was like, oh, I like this song. So we called in to find out some more information. And I was like, yeah, definitely get his email. I'll, send him a digital copy of it. And so we just kind of like, it was just like a passing, oh, thanks for digging the music. Where do you live? Blah, blah, blah. And it must have been right before Jazz Fest in New Orleans, because I think we both said we were going to be down there. So that was the first meeting. And then the second time when I actually met him in person was I think I was playing the Maple Leaf down in New Orleans. And as soon as I walked in, Andy was sitting at the bar, and, we strike it up right away. And, oh, you play keyboards too. Well, this is just going to be a great match. So after that one, then I think he invited me out to New York. That must have been 3 or 4 years ago. And so the first time I got to play with him was in New York. I did like a weekend of shows. And it was funny because they just missed Flavor Fest. So it was either like the week before or the week after. But we played, 4 or 5 nights together and got to hang out. And it was just like, yep, this is going to be a good relationship.
That's so funny. And that's so Andy. And like, it's such a testament to like follow through, you know? Like how many people are like driving along and hear something that they enjoy but don't think to like, reach out about it or anything like that. I mean, he's so good at like making those connections. And like I feel like there's a lot of like serendipity moments for Andy.
Oh, it's so true. And then you get to see it when I think last year was the first time I got to go to Flavor Fest, and you meet people from all over the country, and you're like, oh, what's your connection? And everyone has a crazy Andy story. Oh, I met him in Seattle at some random job, or I met him in, Burning Man or whatever it is. It's just like you said, that is Andy to a T.
Yeah, yeah, that's CFR too. It's all so much about just like going with the flow. I mean, I'm not a technical musician at all. Like, when I'm with the band, I just mostly sing and like just jam and have to like listen really carefully and know when to like, spike in a harmony or something sometimes with these songs that I've never even heard before, but it's always like so much fun and so easy with them. They're so good, all of them, and so good at just communicating with each other on stage that it's easy to just, fit into that.
Oh yeah, and I think maybe that's why we got along so well, because that's a big concept of my band is, try to do at least rehearsal as possible so that we're all just on the bandstand together trying to figure it out. Everyone's listening, and it's like a musical conversation. You put something out and they answer it. And with the music I play, which is a lot of instrumental, kind of funky, jazzy improv, there's plenty of room to stretch out. So, the more you can get out of your own way and get to those magic moments, the better it is, at least in my opinion. And it's crazy to think about when you have a set band, everyone becomes so used to, what each other's going to do and reacting that a lot of times they close off and you start going through the motions. And so what I found with doing these different bands all the time is everyone is so listening so intensely that you get to these magic moments because we don't know how each other's going to react. And then a lot of the times it's, okay, we're putting our ego aside just to serve the music. And it's just amazing.
That's so much fun. You're really giving me like just I don't know if the word is nostalgia right now, but like I really miss seeing live music.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and you don't really miss, or you don't realize the importance of it until it's gone for so long, and you don't realize how much is therapy, and it's a social thing, and it's a way to forget about life's problems and all these little things that we just go to shows and everything resets, and then you take that away and you're missing that therapy or that healing that you normally runs your life.
Yeah, I mean, I totally took it for granted. I mean, it was such a huge part of my life, my social life, playing and seeing music, and, living in the Hudson Valley, there's so many opportunities to see music pretty much any night of the week, and that was like the go-to activity for like me and my friends. Oh, what's going on this weekend? There's a show here, there's a show there, let's go check this out and that out. And yeah, to not be able to do that right now is very weird, and I mean, I'm sure it's 1,000 times weirder for you.
Yeah, and it is crazy how most of the people you meet is through going to see a band or talking to people, or some of your best friends are related through someone else who you don't even talk to anymore, but you and the new friend go see bands together.
Totally.
Yeah, and I feel that way with people all over the country that I've been lucky to meet through music. And if it weren't for that, I wouldn't know all these people that I consider really good friends of mine.
Yeah. Travel and music are the things that I think I miss the most right now. And, we were talking a little bit about touring all over the country. Have you been out of the country much to tour? Do you go to Europe?
No, I was lucky to go once I graduated college. I've got family that lives in England, so spent 2 weeks over there and bouncing around London and doing sightseeing and everything. And that was really the only time I've been overseas, which was hoping to do a lot more of, but you gotta take it as it comes. So
I know.
So no, most of
I'm in just I'm in the same boat where it's like I've traveled more internationally over the last couple of years than ever before in my life, which has been amazing. I got to go to Japan with my boyfriend's band. They had a couple of shows and I tagged along, and we made a little vacation out of it. And I went to France and Ireland and, finally like checking some stuff off the bucket list. And I really wanted to do some more this year. It's not like I'm made of money, so it's probably like, one good vacation per year, but I treasure that. And yeah, to realize that that's not going to happen this year is a huge bummer.
Yep. Yeah. It's funny you talk about that. There's been a joke going around where it's like, I haven't been touring this year and I've actually saved, money as opposed to going in debt, being in a
Yeah.
band for so long.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah, touring is expensive. People don't always realize like it is the overhead cost is nuts. And a lot of the time, I mean, do you experience venues kind of fighting with you about, how you're making money?
Currently, or are you talking before?
In the before times.
Yeah, I mean, it's all, kind of what level you're at and what you're doing. If you're taking door deals, if it's a percentage of a door, if it's guarantees. And for me, with my bands, I can play a show for, 20 to 40 people, or we can do 1,000 or bigger, depending on what artists I'm working with. So it's kind of all over the map, especially with my band and then with the artists I work with. Because like just before the shutdown, I got to do some shows with Melvin Seals, the organ player from the Jerry Garcia band.
Yeah.
So something on that level is way different than if I'm, maybe just playing with my local trio at a jazz club around here. So it's kind of all over the map. So there's really no right or wrong answer with that.
Yeah, yeah, but no, it is. It's expensive. And the other thing that I've learned about touring since dating and living with a touring musician is a lot of the time you don't really feel like you're seeing the places that you're visiting. Do you kind of have that experience where like you've been all over the country, but you don't necessarily feel like you've experienced the places you've been?
Yeah. Oh, so true. A lot of times it's you roll into town, sound check, maybe check into the hotel. You're lucky if you can go out to eat at a restaurant, you play the gig, and then you're lucky if you get to hang for a little bit after, and then it's on to the next one. So yeah, you've been to all these cities, but it's not like you're on vacation going to sightsee and going to all the famous places. It's really just you're lucky if you get that one nice restaurant.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, do you have any like travel anxiety? Because I love traveling, but I definitely like my anxiety does get activated by it where it's like, do I have everything I need and am I going to forget something and this and that? Like I'm such a planner, I think that it kind of like triggers me in that way, but have you settled into a rhythm with that or no?
Yeah, it's weird. You kind of get more comfortable when there's chaos going than if, especially lately, just sitting at home doing nothing. It's like you get so used to the rush of so many things going on and you're flying by the seat of your pants that, yeah, it's a whole different mindset. And I've just tried to simplify, especially when I'm lucky to fly out. It's just grab a guitar and a suitcase and I'm good. Try to set up a backline amp and everything else is good. But for me, when I was doing a lot of driving, the thing that gets hard is when you're on a deadline. So I'd maybe do a gig in Chicago and then have to be down in Florida the next day. And so I've done those 18-hour drives straight through. And that's when it's not fun, where you're, you've got to drive all this time and then probably get no sleep and you got to go right to the stage to play a gig or then you do that and then another gig 8 hours away. And that's when it becomes taxing. When you have those really strict deadlines, when you can take your time and drive out and you got 3 or 4 a week to get there, that's when it's really fun.
Yeah, yeah. Mentally exhausting is the phrase that's coming to mind, and I think people underestimate the importance of like having a minute to sit and do nothing, and we're drowning in that right now. Of course, we've got most of us have too much time to sit around and do nothing, which brings a whole separate kind of anxiety of its own. But yeah, I think the go can really like I don't think I could handle being a full-time touring musician because like rushing from the car straight into the load into the sound check to the blah blah blah. I would be like, no, like everybody shut the fuck up. I'm gonna go sit in the corner for 15 minutes and look at my phone. Otherwise my head's gonna explode.
Yeah, it's funny how within all the chaos, as long as you can play that show, everything resets. And
Totally.
it's weird the power music has, where if you can get that fix, I don't know how else to describe it, because it almost becomes like a addict or a drug, where as long as you get to play that music and you get that anxiety and you get that aggression or whatever it is out, then you can put up with all the other stuff that's going on, all the delays and being hungry and tired and dealing with, sweaty, stinky people in the van or whatever it is. If you get that music, then it's like, you understand why you do everything else. And I could see why, if you don't have a passion for it, it would be very hard. Or if you're not part of the band, if you're just traveling with them, you don't get that release or that magic moment. So it becomes very hard to deal with all the other craziness involved, because you don't have that, that thing that you're chasing every night.
Yeah, that's very true. I guess that is what makes it worth it. I mean, so right now, do the streams that you've done scratch that itch at all, or how are you kind of dealing with that?
No, and that really, you don't want to become depressed about it, but it was so hard because it's this thing you love, and now you're going through a phone which has terrible audio quality. You can only see, it's like giving you 4% of the thing you really love, and you've distilled it down. You don't get the instant feedback from the audience. And, I'm somewhere in the middle. Some of my videos would get a couple thousand views, and obviously you're not doing it for the money, but you need the money to pay the bills. And when you see 4,000 views and you only made $40, it just kind of becomes disheartening.
Yeah.
And really that it's because 2 people gave you 20. So, what happened to the other 4,000 people? And not everyone can obviously support, but everyone could send you a penny. And then if 4,000 views would be $400 or whatever the math is, it's not doing so bad. But yeah, it really became, I want to say, disheartening, because it was nice to be able to have something to do. But I kind of just fell out of it, mainly because it's like it's so hard to get really good quality audio. And I don't know about you, but it's with so many streams now, if they don't have, good quality audio, it's really hard to listen to a lot of them.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, early on, there was so much like, here's me with my guitar alone in my living room. And it's like, of course, totally understandable. That's all people could do. But after a while, it was like, okay, like I need to hear a full band. Like, please, I can't take any more like, single person singing in their living room.
Oh, yeah. And a lot of it depends on, what genre or what style. I'm sure Dave Matthews or Jimmy Buffett, they'd be all right, because that's their thing, playing acoustic guitar. But if, say, you're a bass player in a punk band, you can't really do a live stream by yourself.
Totally.
So you don't want to feel like there's only so much spotlight to go around, and you don't want to be jumping on there, or overusing it. Like I'd see a lot of people going live streaming every day, and it's, I know they need that because that gives them something to do, but it's like diminishing returns at a certain point.
Totally. Oversaturation.
Yeah. So I've been really lucky to do, once June hit, I would say there started to be some little like outdoor restaurant patio kind of I don't want to say like solo acoustic gigs, but a little bit of that, a little bit of small band trios or quartets or something like that. So I've been really lucky to be able to play a little bit over the past month and a half.
Yeah.
Actually in person, as opposed to having to do a stream. And I just really can't express how fortunate I am to be able to do that, because it was very difficult, being home for 3 months with no live music. And I know there's people that still haven't played a gig yet. So I definitely feel for everyone out there.
Totally. Yeah. So where does the inspiration come from for you right now? You said you worked on a bunch of new material. You got enough to maybe make another record soon. I mean, is it like, where's your head at, I guess, is what I'm asking. Because like, I feel like it'd be easy to write a very depressing album right now.
Yeah, and I did that, but I don't know if those songs will ever see the light of day. Maybe. I feel like we're all just in this boat right now of everyone's just doing whatever they have to do to make it through the day or to survive. And we're all bending or breaking whatever normal rules we set for ourselves just to be able to be comfortable enough to survive. Especially with being off the road and all that. It's like, whatever diet or health or exercising routines you had, maybe you've done new ones, or maybe they've gone out of the window. And I don't know. For me, the music has always been that, like I said, like the great resetter. Once I can play or sing or write or whatever it is, all the rest of the problems go away. So once you get so intimate with that, where you're just writing and you're just in the room, then you kind of need to move away from it. So for me, the inspiration, it comes and goes. Some days I'll wake up and grab the guitar and just play all day long. Other days I won't touch it at all, because I think you need to have some space from it to be able to really get the joy out of it. So it's like it's a potion, where you can't take it all up right away. You've got to somehow find a way to moderate it.
Oh, yeah. And also, it's kind of like, when you're, I don't know if you ever draw or paint or anything like that, but sometimes you're working on a visual art piece and like you have to walk away from it for a little bit because you've been so up close to it and staring at it for so long that like you can't even see it anymore. So once you walk away and come back, all of a sudden it's like this revelation of like, oh, I need to do this, and this part looks better than I thought, and this part looks worse than I thought. So I'm sure there's a little bit of that to it as well.
Yeah, that's so true. And we think of even when you're performing, if you get to do, more than one set, it's always nice to have that small break and reset the ears,
Yeah.
reset the palette, and you come back with a fresh set of energy. So songwriting is the same way. So sometimes it all just comes out and the whole idea is there with the lyrics and everything. And other times you get, one small, maybe a verse or a chorus, and then it just sits there. And, I'm sure you have the same thing. You got notes on your phone or recordings of little ideas that you come back to every few months or every few years, and you're like, oh, now I know where to go with this.
Yeah.
So that's been fun, digging back through some of my old, archives and seeing what I can put together and Lego them together. And maybe this page goes with this, verse over here. So I've definitely done that lately too.
Yeah, I like the phrase Lego them together. Are you are you a meditation guy or anything like that? Do you have any kind of like mindfulness practice going on?
Sometimes I don't, have like a set schedule where I'll sit down every day for half an hour or whatever it is. For me, it used to be driving, just because I was on the road so much.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's so easy because you're doing something you do so often that you can, I'm not saying turn your brain off because you're still focused on the road, but you get so used to that mode that it brings you that mindfulness. So I would say that and the music were kind of my areas. Because I'd always love when you're playing a song or a set, if you're lucky, and you stop thinking. And that's, for me, it's the most beautiful feeling because you're weightless. You're floating. You're not consciously thinking of what you're playing next. If it's a song or an improvisation, you're able to just kind of, whatever idea is, I don't know how to put this spiritually, but whatever idea is out there is like a channel through you. So You're not the conscious creator. That the idea comes from outer space or wherever and goes through you, through your music, into the band or into the audience. And for me, that is probably the highest form of, meditation or mindfulness that I've ever experienced. So it's, I don't want to say difficult to recreate that, just sitting alone in the dark. It maybe just doesn't have the same effect.
Yeah. Oh God, I couldn't agree more. And I mean, when you're in the audience too, it can happen. I've had so many amazing nights at shows where it was just like, I'm not thinking about anything. I'm purely in the moment, just moving and feeling the music as it comes. And God, there's not much better than that.
No, and it's great. Yeah, definitely seeing bands all the time. And a lot of times it happens when you go in without any expectations, or if it's a band you really love, you're like, I don't care what they play. You're not chasing a certain song or anything. That's when you usually have your best moments, is when you can just let everything go and be in the moment.
Yeah, yeah. And driving too, I also agree with. I love a long drive. I am definitely somebody who, like, if an opportunity comes up to drive for 2 or 3 hours, I'm like so on it, especially if I'm alone. And like, I certainly don't mind long rides with other people, but there's something really, really wonderful about just long solo drives. And I'm not always even necessarily listening to anything. Like, I will put on like a podcast or an album or whatever sometimes, but I will go through, an hour and a half where I'm just like driving in silence, just thinking about stuff or thinking about nothing. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, there's something nice, especially when you do it a lot. Like for me, I do a lot of solo driving, so it almost becomes I don't want to say a burden, but like when you have someone in the car, you feel like you have to cater to them, where it's nice when you're just driving solo and you can zone out and stop whenever you want to stop. If you get hungry or if you got to use the bathroom, there's this freeness to it, that you're just on the road,
Yeah,
on the journey of life.
totally, totally. Yeah, it's funny. I'm trying to like choose my words carefully because I'm sure many of the people who listen to my podcast have been on long drives with me. So I don't want to make it sound like I wish they weren't
You're
there.
calling them all out by name.
But
Well,
yeah, I mean,
this
like,
person's a pain.
but yeah, there's so much of just like, you don't want to feel like you necessarily have to have a conversation or have to like ask, hey, is it okay if I put this song on or this podcast? Is this what you want to listen to? Is it okay if we stop here? Do you need to stop? Like, yeah, and I'm not, I like people. I love probably most of the people who have been in the car with me over the past, 16 years of driving. But yeah, I do. I just love being in a car by myself, or like just me and the dog.
Yeah, there is that mindfulness of it, of just being free and being weightless and being in the moment. And I guess that's, maybe what's so scary right now with everything going on, where we get so wrapped up in, oh, this is what's happened, or this is what's happening, or we don't know what's happening. And I think it makes it a lot harder to just be in the moment, because we've got so much anxiety of the world right now. And if you can, as hard as that sounds, like try to shut everything else out, it really is good for your soul, I think.
Yeah, totally. This is kind of a left field question, but it just popped into my head. You've done so much solo driving, I'm sure, at unusual hours of the night in rural parts of the country. Have you ever seen anything super weird?
There's been like flashing lights, but it's, when you're driving, you can't really fixate. So you can't say, oh, that was a UFO, because it could have been anything. It could have just been a flash or someone else's car. So stuff like that. Luckily, a few close calls with some deers, but nothing where I've ever, had an accident or hit a deer or anything. But they've definitely ran on the road, and you're like, real quick, gotta swerve around them or something. But no, nothing like, no aliens or. We had this good one a couple of years ago when I was with that band Fresh Hops. We were driving from Lutzen, Minnesota. We had done a beer festival up there, and then we were driving straight to, I think, Denver, Colorado for a show. Like I said, going from one to the other, where you only got so much time. So we're driving straight through the night, and for a good, 6-hour stretch on I-80, we were following Bret Michaels from Poison, his tour bus. And the best part about it is the back of the tour bus is just his giant face plastered all over. And it's just like, you're loopy because it's in the middle of the night, and you're like, oh my God, there's Bret Michaels. And so we're just laughing. And then at one point he almost runs us off the road. So yeah, it was just perfect.
I imagine it was him behind the wheel, like, fuck these guys.
We looked it up because I feel like he was doing some reality show at the time, and I honestly don't even think he was in the bus. I think it was just like his crew or his band.
Yeah.
He probably got to fly from one gig to the next. So that just makes it better. Like, we're talking all this smack about Bret Michaels, and he's probably not even in the damn bus.
God, yeah, I love seeing weird shit on the road. And it's funny you mentioned like flashing lights because I've definitely seen some of that. I had a really weird UFO experience one time that I still think about a lot. That I was like hanging out with my friend. I hope it's okay if I just launch into a sort of long UFO story here.
No, I love it.
So I was hanging out with my friend. This was when I was living in Connecticut. And, we used to just go and like smoke weed and drive around and just, find pretty spots to hang out. So we were doing that one night. We were in my car and we had stopped off the side of this like nice country road. And, we were like smoking a little bit and hanging out. We decided to like get out and get on the roof of the car. It was a nice summer night and the stars were out. And I remember I was sitting in the driver's seat and I had noticed in my rear view mirror, like the side mirror, that there was this like big bright light behind me, like a bright orange light. And I like didn't really think anything of it because I just kind of wrote it off as like a street light. So we get out of the car and there is no street light, but I, was stoned and wasn't really thinking about it. We're out in the middle of the country. So we're lying on the roof of the car talking and looking at the stars, and eventually I look down toward the horizon. This, maybe like 10 minutes had gone by, and I see this light is back or had never left, and I just didn't notice. I don't know, but there's this big bright orange light on the horizon. And
Oh, wow.
I'm looking at it, and I'm like, that's kind of weird. And I pointed it out to my friend, and we're watching it, and like when we first noticed it, it was stationary and had been for a while, because remember, I had seen it in the mirror. And as we're looking
Yeah.
at it, it starts to move. Like it went from being stationary, hanging in the sky, right over the horizon, to moving, like going up in the sky. And we're like, what the fuck? And it starts to fly like up and then arc. And it was like far away initially. And it very quickly, gained height and started to come towards us. And we were like, what the fuck are we
Whoa.
looking at right now? And as we watched it, yeah, it just kind of started coming closer and closer. And like, bear in mind, this was very far away. So we were like watching it for a good long while. Like, what is that? Like,
Yeah.
should we be moving? We're like, so it starts to get closer and we're both getting like freaked out because we're also stoned, but we're like, what the fuck is this? Like, this is like, maybe we should get in the car. Like, we were like freaked out at this point. So we get back in the car and we start to drive away, and it's like over our heads at this point. And my friend is leaning out the window, looking up at it, freaking the fuck out. And I only caught a glimpse of it
Whoa.
because I was driving. But like when it was over our head and we could see it clearly, it was like a triangular shaped thing with like different colored lights on each point.
How big was it?
In my memory, it was pretty big. I may have like conflated it, and just like exaggerated the memory. So I don't fully trust my memory anymore at this point. But I know that this did happen. And in my memory, it was like pretty low in the sky to the point where we could see it pretty detailed. And it was like the size of, I don't know, like a house, like a small house.
Oh, okay. So yeah, there definitely could have been people or other in there.
Yeah, it didn't strike me as a drone, and this was years ago before drones were really so much of a thing, but I mean, yeah, like it was something. And the weirdest part of the whole thing is I could write it off as like we were stoned and just got freaked out by a plane, except for the part where it was hanging stationary in the sky for like 15 minutes and then started to move. Like nothing does that.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what would did you see the I forget if it was the Navy or the Army just released that like UFO footage of something. I can't remember if that was East Coast or West Coast of something they had caught, out just on the ocean, and it was just hovering for a long time, and then once the planes got close, it just takes off out of nowhere.
Dude.
Um, so yeah, who knows? I mean, maybe you caught your close encounter.
I kind of think so. Like, yeah, and I've seen like, a couple other weird things in the sky over the course of my life, but nothing that vivid. Like, that was easily the craziest thing that I've seen in the sky. I saw a really good meteor one time over the ocean. Like straight up
Really?
giant,
Oh, that's
giant
awesome.
fireball falling. It was like huge and glorious, but like it was natural. This was not natural. I don't know what this was.
Now, was like the car flickering? Were lights like kind of moving? Like, did it have any effect like that?
I don't really remember. Yeah, my memory's a little bit fuzzy as far as like the details, but yeah, it was crazy and I cannot explain it. That's all I know.
And it must have been some really good weed.
Yeah, I really don't smoke anymore. I mean, it's funny. I was such a fan for such a long time, and it kind of changed on me. Are you much of a smoker these days?
No, not at all. I
Yeah.
probably stopped around, I don't know, 2012, and I can't get back into it. I just get way too paranoid and anxiety and not end up enjoying it. And then it's like,
Yeah.
why am I doing this?
Yeah, me too. Exactly. And I used to love it. It used to make everything fun, and now it just makes everything, yeah, super super anxious.
Yep. And isn't the whole point to just like mellow you out and relax and enjoy everything? And when it has the opposite effect, no, it's not fun anymore.
Totally. And of course, there's always, you say this to people and they're like, well, there's different strains and you just blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Like, no, it just, there's no strain that's going to work for me. I just don't enjoy it anymore. Sorry.
And I wonder if maybe that's the issue, is that it's just like too intense.
Maybe.
Like everything nowadays is just super, medically grown and has the biggest impact. And it's like, can I just get like an eighth of whatever potency is
Yeah.
going on here?
Give me some mids. But
Yeah.
even that, I don't know. Yeah. Like, I feel like the stuff that I have access to around here is not super crazy, but yeah, I don't think it has to be. I think I'm pretty anxious myself these days. I don't know if I don't know if you can relate to that at all.
You don't need anything else
Yeah.
helping with the anxiety.
Totally. Yeah, I need the opposite. And like, yeah, I'm not really I've talked about this a little bit with some folks lately where it's like I'm trying to really control the amount of drinking I do. And I mean, not that I've ever really struggled with that, but just, it definitely was easier to just keep drinking, and I'm trying not to do that, to like, stop and take water breaks and be really conscious. And I just feel shitty the next day, and I feel, like it was extra calories I didn't need. I mean, where are you at with drinking these days? Are you doing any like quarantine boozing or no?
Oh yeah, way too much. But last year, I think, yeah, it was September. I took the month off. Did the whole like no drinking for a month, and it was the first time for me. And I was like, I just want to see if I can. And honestly, it was so easy for me to just step off and take a month off. And it was nice because I got more health conscious. Because once you do one thing, then you're like you said, you're not so cloudy anymore. And it's like, well, now let's try to eat a little healthier and start working out. And so, yeah, I highly recommend it for anyone to just see if you can do it. Just take a month off, and if you've got it under control, then maybe you don't need it. But it was something for me where I'd never done it before, so I wanted to see if just see where I was at with my relationship with it. So I think I'm gonna do it again this month, or I mean this year. Do it again in September and just take a month out to dry out.
Nice. Yeah. It is a great thing to do. I've never done like a dedicated month, but I'll certainly do like, a couple of weeks here and there, or just, tell myself and stick to it that I'm not going to drink during the week and wait until the weekend. Because I'll have, in normal times, I'll have band practice and stuff during the week where it's easy to just like have a casual beer or two. But then, you realize at the end of the week, like I've drank every night this week, even if it was just like one beer. And I don't know, it just makes me feel kind of gross. Like, and yeah, a little bit cloudier when you take a long time off. You feel like, you suddenly like remember what it's like to really truly be fully sober, and it feels great.
Oh, big time. Yeah. And then you try to find that natural high. And I think that was big. What scared me was, like I said, being on the road so much, it just becomes a habit. You order a beer, and not that you are drinking a lot every night, but if you play 5 or 6 days in a row and you have, 2 or 3 beers every day, then it becomes a lot just, accumulatively. So I remember I was playing the restaurant at the House of Blues in Chicago. I think it was either July or August of last year. And I was like, I'm not drinking tonight. It was like a Monday night or something weird. And I'm like, not drinking tonight, just going to take the night off. I'd had a crazy weekend. So I remember I sat down at the bar, bartender comes up, what do you have? And immediately I ordered a drink, like
Yeah.
unconsciously. And I was like, that scared me a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. You forget that like you can order seltzer at a bar. It's a valid option.
No. And now, they have like the like, the seltzer beers now. So then
Right.
it becomes even more scarier.
Oh God, yeah, yeah. Well, I could have a seltzer, or I could have a White Claw, which is basically a seltzer, but it's more
Yeah,
fun.
might as well add a little alcohol to it.
Yeah, no, I mean, only a few times in my life have I been to a show and not drank. One time actually both times because I wasn't feeling well. And like there were shows that I really, really wanted to go to, but I was like feeling, and this was of course in the before times when you could safely just, go out with a mild, GI thing and not worry about infecting anybody. But yeah, it was like, I don't want to miss these shows, but I'm not, super, not on top of my game health wise. So I think I'm just like going to drink seltzer tonight and had a blast. Had a really great time. Realized that I don't need to drink to enjoy music or enjoy being out and talking to people. But it's like automatic when you're out. You're like, yeah, of course, everybody else is drinking. Like, I guess I should drink too.
Yeah, that's the hard thing is finding where your relationship with it is, because music is the thing you're going out to do. You're going out to enjoy a band, and then it becomes about the drinking or the partying or whatever, and then
Yeah.
you totally lose sight of your joy. What is the important thing? It's the music. I'm going out to hear a band. Yeah, I might have a few drinks, but that is why I'm there. It's not to get loaded with my friends. And how many times is that? Often that's what happens.
Yeah. I'm wondering, who do you, in the normal world times, who do you like to go see? What are some of your favorite bands to go see, or do you not even really have the opportunity to do that?
First, I'm going to take a little side detour. It just freaks me out when you talk about like the normal times, and is that going to become the new thing now? It's like,
Uh,
God, you remember the old days
I
when we could
know.
safely go out
It
before
really,
times?
it's already become that because in March it was like, oh, it'll only be a few months, and now it's like, oh God, I don't know when it's gonna be.
Seriously. And then I'm thinking of like the holidays, and especially around here when it gets cold, you can't just hang out outside and play some music on a patio or whatever. So it's going to be really strange if, which I'm sure it is going to continue into the winter months, and just like thinking of the holidays and social distance, those two concepts don't, seem to jive really well.
Yeah, people are definitely gonna throw some hissy fits if, we try to tell them they can't hug grandma at Christmas. But it's like, dude, fucking don't hug your grandma. Just suck it up for
I
another
know.
month. Like,
It's such a natural reaction, especially with our, grandparents. You don't know how many times you probably don't see them as much as it is. And then, you might not ever see them again. And so it's like going against that natural instinct of wanting to hug someone. Everything is so crazy right now.
yeah, yeah, I know.
Sorry though, I totally spaced on what
No,
your original
that's
question
that's what this
was.
podcast is all about. There are no parameters on this podcast. It's whatever pops into your head you get to say. But yeah, so if let's
Oh yeah,
pretend
yeah,
that
yeah.
everything's going to be
Going to
normal
see
in a year.
music.
Yeah, who do you like to go see?
So I'm my tastes are all over the board. Growing up like in the classic rock, and then getting into the jam bands and the Grateful Dead and Fishes of the world, and then going to music school and you experience to all this classical music and world music, and then finding out about jazz and that whole world. So I'm really all over the map. So you kind of fall into camps of like, is it like a legendary artist you'd like to see or always wanted to see, like a Paul Simon or a Paul McCartney, or is it your friend's local band? So I would say more often than not, when I'm off the road, it's going to see like a local friend's band.
Hmm.
Like here in Northwest Indiana, there's a great band called Caught on Klein. My buddy Nick Kazonis runs it. Really just great kind of, they have this Greek, funky R&B feel. there's a lot of great bands around here, but then, being lucky to be in the artist mode, you get to do some of these festivals where you get to see, other bands you love. So like I got to do this fest down in Punta Gorda, Florida this year, and Lettuce was one of the headliners, and Robert Randolph and the Family Band. So that's always nice, when you can, because a lot of times we don't have time to go see bands, so you're on the same bill, where you get to see these other bands you really love. So for me, it's, I would say a lot of like more the jazz influenced groups, John Schofield or Soul Live, or kind of that world. But, a lot of it has just been so focused on creating and doing my own shows that you kind of pushed all the other stuff aside. And it's nice when you get to see it, but it's less of a priority now. So say I have a night off, I'd rather just be able to hang out with friends than going to see a band. Because, when you go to see a band, as a musician, you want to analyze and you want to be into the music,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not as much of a social thing. So sometimes you get to bridge that gap, but yeah, I don't know. That's a tough question to answer, and especially without seeing any bands for so long that totally out of the mode now.
I know. There's so many shows that I missed like last year and was like, oh, I'll catch the next leg of the tour, and now it's like, oh, maybe not. But yeah, it's funny you brought up like legacy, major artists, and I'm so happy and grateful that I finally got to see Billy Joel last year, which I had never done before, and he does his MSG
Oh, wow.
residency thing, and I had never gone, and I love Billy Joel. I realized that not everybody does, but I'm a huge fan, and yeah, my boyfriend got us tickets for my birthday last year, and we went down, and that was an awesome show. I'm so glad I got to do that. But yeah, I haven't been to many like stadium shows, which I feel like if they ever happen again, which is a depressing thing to say, but I want to see more stadium shows. I want to like go to see some huge artists, because I see so many awesome, great smaller shows in my area, and I don't really take the opportunity to like go down to the city and go to MSG or whatever that often.
Yeah, that might be a little while,
Hmm.
but I totally know what you're saying, because it is such a different experience. Back in was that 2015, I got to see the Fairly Well shows, which was the surviving Grateful Dead guys with
Yeah.
Trey and Bruce Hornsby, and it's such a different experience being in a stadium with, I think, around 60,000 people, and it's such a transformative energy when you have that many people together. Where obviously, in just seeing a band in a local bar or something, they could be playing the same song, but it's crazy how music can affect that big of a crowd, and then you get that energy going. So yeah, it's definitely a unique opportunity, and I really hope we can do it again for sure. But I think it's going to be a little while.
Yeah, definitely. But like, you brought up Paul McCartney. I've never seen Paul McCartney. I really would like to. Oh man, Ringo was at Bethel I think it was last year, and I wanted to go and ended up not being able to. I was just busy on the night, but it was like, Ringo and the All-Star Band, and he always brings in these crazy guests, and there were like rumors flying around that like Paul might show up, and it was like, like I should have fucking just gone to that thing.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah, because that's not too far from where you're at, right?
Yeah, it's about an hour and a half, 2 hours ish, but it's totally worth it.
Oh, okay. I was thinking you were up in Woodstock.
I am, but well, near Woodstock. But yeah, Bethel is farther from Woodstock than Woodstock wants to admit.
Right, because there was the whole snafu about last year about the big reunion, right?
Oh
Did that ever end up
yeah.
going down or no?
No, no, nothing. Well, they did like some kind of small thing. There wasn't camping or anything like that. They did some concerts. I want to say like Santana and like anybody that they could get who, had been there. I think John Fogerty probably played. Um, but yeah, it didn't end up being like an official Woodstock 50 like was supposed to happen. And now I think the last thing I read was that the organizers, Michael Lang and them, are pursuing legal action with the company that was supposed to be funding them, and initially backed out and kind of shat the bed on the whole thing. So yeah, that was a whole clusterfuck.
Yeah, I guess that is kind of the spirit of the original one, though, right? It
Yeah.
ended up becoming a free show, so you can't really do that again.
Were you at Woodstock 99 by any chance? Did you go to that?
No, I was not. Did you go?
No, I would have been 10 years old, but but I know the stories. That one turned into like a real actual nightmare because it was like 1,000,000 degrees and water was like $6, and everybody like got super angry and aggro, and there were riots and fires, and it was just like somebody may have died. I'm not sure, but it was like just a legendarily terrible festival.
Oh yeah, yeah. I remember watching it on TV, and you think about it. It's like the 50th anniversary. You have plenty of time to get all your ducks in a row.
Yeah.
But for a festival like that, has such a crazy history to it. I guess that's the the way it's going to wind up.
I think it was meant to be a one-time event. The mistake was, and I think the mistake was trying so hard to capitalize on it because it was the original, like you said, it ended up being free. I mean, kind of by accident, but yeah. And then every follow-up attempt to it has been kind of a cash grab. And I mean, the 50th definitely was going to be. The initial lineup that they threw out there was like, there were a lot of great artists on it, but there was no focus. It was all over the map. They had everybody from Dead and Company to Jay-Z to Miley Cyrus, and it was like, who is this for exactly?
Yeah, that did seem a strange lineup for one group of people, and maybe that was their goal, was to bring different people together, which probably is the spirit of the original. But
Sure.
At such different times now that I think it's hard to capture a similar zeitgeist with people from that many different backgrounds and music interests.
Yeah, I think you have to decide who your audience is, and I think they didn't really do that. They couldn't really decide between courting the old heads who were at the original festival or super nostalgic for the original festival versus, younger people who will just go to any festival. And yeah, they were going to try to split the difference. And honestly, I think it would have been a nightmare. So, and I probably would have had to go because I was working at the radio station at the time. So I'm very grateful it didn't happen.
Yeah, you'd be working it. That's for sure.
Running a broadcast, I would be, yeah, I'm glad that was an experience I didn't have to have.
Although, maybe with sitting around for so long now, you're like probably clamoring for any kind of experience.
Yeah, well, if festivals happen again, hopefully my podcast will be huge by then and I'll be able to go do some backstage interviews on my own.
Yeah, there we go.
You never know.
I think you could have a whole like subset of your podcast of just crazy people that Andy knows.
You are not wrong. I could absolutely.
Like you could do a different guest every week and probably go for like a good 5 years with just running on that subset.
Yeah, I might hit him up sooner or later if I start running dry.
Have you got Andy on one of these yet?
Not yet, but I was thinking, I mean, this is maybe giving away too much sneak preview, but yeah, I want to do a CFR episode, and I haven't decided if I should do like one episode per member or if I should just get everybody on at once, but I think it'll be a riot.
Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of collective stories with that group, so yeah, it might be best to do two one at a time.
Yeah, you can't imagine what rehearsals are like. So much.
I think you just ask Andy one question and that'll be the whole hour right there.
Yeah, pretty much. Oh man, well yeah, so
Like,
speaking of which, we're just about at an hour, so I want to thank you again, Joe, for coming on. This was really fun.
yeah, I really appreciate you reaching out and having me on. Like you said, following through. Everyone is always talking about, oh, let's get together, let's do something. So it's nice when people are like, No, let's actually do it. Set the date. Like, here we go. So thank you so much.
Yeah. And before I boot you off, what do you have to promote? How can we find your music? How can we send you money?
So I launched a Patreon back in April, and it's been really fun having like a single place to kind of focus all your creative energy. It's just under my name, joemarcinekband.com. That's all my socials and website and everything like that. But it's been really cool to like dig through the archives and find I found this old video of a show I did with Bernie Worrell before he passed away, and he's doing Flashlight, and it was just like bringing tears to my eyes, but it was so fun to be able to post that. And then I'm also posting like just demos of songs I'm doing. There's like live stream I did with the trio, unreleased songs I did with George Porter and Melvin Seals. I just found this show from 2013 at the Cubby Bear in Chicago. Posted the full soundboard on there with Steve Mullets. So yeah, a lot of cool stuff. I try every Monday. I'm trying to post something new,
Yeah.
be it old recordings or videos or something new I just came up with. So it's really exciting to have this project where I'm focusing all my creative energy on. And with all the Spotify and stuff, that's like can't make any money or make a living doing any of that. So with the Patreon, it's been really amazing to have support from everyone on there. So it's just under my name, Joe Marcinek, Marcinek band. And if you want to go on there and check it out and support, we really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, that's an incredible list of content you just you just threw out there right there. So I will have to go check it out and see what else you got.
Yeah, and then just doing little acoustic shows and a couple of house parties. That seems to be the way it's going to go, at least for the rest of this year. And just 10 or 15 people getting together, spaced out. A lot of times, if you can do it in the backyard. And so if you want to hire me or hire the band, let me know. We'll come out and bring the music to you. You don't got to go anywhere.
Amazing. Well, thanks, Joe. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, and I hope you guys stay safe out there. And if you see Andy or any of the rest of the guys, tell them I said hi.
Thanks for listening to More Music Please Quarantine Beat. Follow the show on Instagram at moremusic.podcast and check out the website moremusicpodcast.com for new episodes. Questions or comments, email moremusic.podcast@gmail.com. Thanks to DJ Scully, Michael Cadnar, and James Stewart for the catchy theme song you're hearing now. I'm MK Burnell. Talk to you next time.